Hello everyone, welcome to today's session, 4.0 Touch, opening a new era of optical connectivity. My name is William Curl from Huawei, and I'm happy to be joined by two industry experts today. So without further ado, let me welcome Michael Philpott, Research Director of Service Provider Consumer Research at Omdia, formerly known as Ovum. I'm also joined by Huawei's own Liu Yan, who works as the Research and Development Director for Network Cloud Engine Fiber Access Networks. So throughout the event, if you have any questions, please use the question box on the right-hand side of the screen to submit them. We'll have two Q&A sessions today, one for each speaker. Also on the agenda today, we'll be having two live polls where we're going to turn the tables and ask you the questions. If we don't have the chance to address your question, not to worry. We have a team on hand who can answer by email as well. Right, so okay, to begin, let's hand over to Michael Philpott, who's about to explore the key home broadband trends of the COVID-19 era, as well as the significant challenges posed to operations and maintenance. So over to you, Michael. Thanks very much.
Thank you, William, and I'd like to thank Huawei for inviting me to speak on this webinar today. Okay, so let's get started and let's dive straight in. So the next slide, please, William. The biggest and the most obvious trend in the broadband space today is the push to faster and faster speeds, with many countries around the world already offering speeds of gigabit per second plus, and the average speed on a global basis already above 100 megabits per second, and that will increase to more than 250 megabits per second by the end of 2024. Skeptics may say this is largely pushed by marketing departments and heavy market competition, and there is some truth in that, but there is obvious true demand coming through from consumers for speed, as well as they move to more applications that require greater bandwidth because of their high definition video qualities, especially around TV, but in the future other applications such as VR and AR. Around the world as well, in addition, governments have recognized that if they invest in their broadband networks, not just in terms of coverage, which it was originally, but also in terms of speed, then this can grow their GDP, which is obviously important for economic growth and due to business investment and innovation. Thank you. Next slide. In terms of marketing, the shift actually is starting to move away from marketing around pure speed, because as more and more consumers get access to ultra-fast broadband speeds, then at least their immediate requirements start to be met, and therefore just marketing more speed at them starts to lose the power of that marketing message and becomes a harder sell. However, broadband applications have become such an important part of our daily life that actually marketing around the end-to-end quality of experience of the broadband networks, which deliver those applications in a better experience, does carry differentiation. But what do we mean by quality of experience? How do you quantify that? How do you measure it? And in our survey analysis that we've done in Omdia, it largely comes down to a mix of these 5 things. And yes, you can see that broadband speed is in there, but also you have things like 100% reliability, then great customer service, fantastic Wi-Fi experience in every room, and of course, quick and easy setup. So it's the mix of all these different types of metrics that provide great quality and differentiate around all of this, start to differentiate a service provider's brand. Next slide. Because of this move to a more quality experience, it's actually encouraging greater investment in not just in next generation access networks, but also in other technologies such as smart Wi-Fi and data analytic cloud platforms. If you look at the metrics from Medux, which is a specialist in network measurements, you can see here that by investing in next generation access technologies such as fiber to the home and HFC technologies, then not only can they provide higher speeds, but also lower latencies and lower jitter. Fiber to the home in particular has greater advantages because it's future-proof in terms of its limited speed, and it can be fully symmetrical. Also, it has lower operational costs compared to other technologies a higher reliability and intrinsic more secure. So investing in these new technologies start to bring a new level of quality experience into the home. Next slide, please. COVID-19, of course, has had a dramatic impact on many industries around the world. In terms of broadband, it's relatively been stable in terms of its impact because, of course, as more and more of us have been confined to lengthy times in the home, our reliance on those broadband services have kind of increased because we're not only just using those for entertainment purposes, but also from working from home, just as I am now, but also for education, online gaming, etc., etc. So whereas quality of experience around the broadband was important before COVID-19, that importance has only increased in terms of the perception of the customer today. The next slide. But COVID-19 has unfortunately had a real negative impact in terms of the operation and marketing teams. Operators around the world have seen a rapid increase in the number of customer interactions. This is largely due to customers either signing up for a new service or looking to change their service or just looking for more technical support during this time. So that's been on one case great for the service providers in terms of greater level of interaction with their customers, but also they're having to do this whilst having a reduced service staff themselves, because those service staff also have to self-isolate or might be working from home and not having the right level of IT, or at least not the level of IT capabilities that they have been used to. Of course, the field staff have to go through new procedures as well, especially when working in tight confines or going into customer premises, and this adds to the length of time it takes and therefore also the cost. So this is creating a kind of a perfect storm, really, in terms of the O&M team, in terms of a higher level of customer engagement, but a higher cost in trying to meet that engagement as well. Thank you. Next slide. This, therefore, is increasing or accelerating the need for AI intelligent-based networks to kind of be able to deliver all these services in a more efficient manner, reducing the level of manpower required to deliver these new services into the home. And these are important in 4 key areas. One is around deployment, so having an intelligent network that's able to flex to take into account the different level of customer needs of the network and different services. And the other one is around provisioning, so self-installation of new technology, but also the ability to turn on and turn off new applications at will, very much like an OTT experience, what the customers have come used to by working with other service providers such as Netflix and Amazon, really putting that type of capability into the telco domain. Not only does this provide great experience for the customer, but also allows the telco to be more innovative and put down far more new services than what they've been used to in the past. Thirdly, around service optimization, really increasing the experience of the broadband services in the home, solving issues on the fly even before the customer realizes that they have an issue. And then finally, around troubleshooting, so that when customers do have an issue, those issues can be very quickly and easily resolved. I'd just like to spend the next few minutes that I have left in my presentation going through those in a little bit more detail, one by one. If you look at probably any telcos and financial reports these days, you will always see that the need for a more network efficiency has been one of their key kind of priorities that they have in terms of their business strategy, and that's mirrored by Omdia's own enterprise surveys, where if you filter by telcos, you can see that their #1 business priority is to reduce those operational expenditures. And that's because all those service providers are being relatively successful in controlling their CapEx costs, OpEx has continued to grow, and that's especially the case around network operations, where they now reached about 30% or just under 30% of the total operational costs. So introducing new AI-based intelligent network and technology that helps reduce those operational costs will certainly be a top business priority for telcos today. Next slide. Then around the zero-touch provisioning, the days really of having a fixed hard service bundle that customers sign up to for 18 or 24 months really is quickly becoming a thing of the past. Consumers now expect today more personalized bundles, greater service flexibility, so they can turn applications on and off, just as they get used to on their Netflix type accounts. And also, again, it's a little bit tired of being given technology that then they expect to keep for 5 or 6 years. Customers want a great experience, and they want that great experience to continue as technology goes. So operators will have to get used to being able to refresh that technology on a much quicker basis, and perhaps even offer guarantees around customers always having the latest technologies in their home. This is leading operators to kind of invest and think about having home app stores, just as you have on the mobile devices today, so that consumers can start to choose what type of applications that they want, and as I say, can very easily flex those applications that they have available to them. And of course, that means that not only do you have to have the applications to enable that, but also the back office to enable those applications to be turned on and off, and also added to their bill in an efficient way. We're also moving to more of a voice interface type environment in the home, moving away from applications and technology where you have to touch, and operators will have to move in this direction as well, allow those voice assistants to be able to control services in the home. And then finally moving into more smart home type applications, which really must, certainly from a telco perspective, must be connected to the overall broadband experience and central part of in the home. And you can see that being able to deliver all of this would be impossible if you continue to operate in a more manual way. It has to become a more automated, more remote way of providing services into the home. Thank you. Next slide. As operators have invested more and more in their access technologies, and then this has really pushed the bottleneck of those services into the home, especially around the Wi-Fi technology, where there's been much less investment over the years. And this has led to a situation where, oops, sorry, I've lost this slide. Sorry, thank you. This has led to a situation where up to 60% now of calls coming into those technical support centers are now Wi-Fi related. This is a particular problem for those service agents, because at least traditionally they had very limited visibility as to what was going on in the home, and this meant that it was very difficult for them to solve up those problems, which led to expensive service calls, but also often multiple ones, because all they could do was provide advice and then ask the customer to ring back if that advice didn't solve the issue. And it also led to a lot of technology being sent back, even though there's nothing wrong with the actual hardware, because it was a software or some other kind of fault that was causing the issue, and that was not really apparent until the technology was sent back and it was investigated into the labs. So there's a lot of wasted investment going on because of this. And perhaps the most damning statistic of all is that a lot of consumers actually just stay silent because they just assume that the telco will never be able to solve their problem, and then they just churn when their subscription is up, in the hope that that eventually solves the problem by moving to a different service provider, hopefully with different and new technology. All of these issues could be solved by providing more AI and cloud-based data analytics platform which solves these problems, as I say, before the consumer even knows about it. But if not, then at least provides the service agent with a much more detail about what's going on in the home, and allows them to solve those problems in a much more efficient way. And you can see that not only will that give great experience to the customers, but also reduces these operational costs. And then just finally, around troubleshooting, where we're moving into a much more connected but also complex environment in the home. All kinds of different devices and applications, appliances that are now connected. And this creates a situation where it becomes so complex that the average consumer is not able to manage that complexity and starts to need help. Just to provide a very simple example, if you're watching a Netflix program on your TV and that pauses, then what's causing that issue? Is it the software on the TV set? Is it a hardware TV set itself? Is it the Wi-Fi network? Is it the core network, or is it the actual network servers themselves? The consumer has no idea, but the only person that they can talk to about it in all that supply chain is the telcos, and they usually end up footing those calls and footing the bill for those calls. So we quite quickly move into a world where zero-touch technical support capabilities in the home that will either solve those issues before the consumer is aware of them, or at least helps the consumer isolate the issue and helps them solve it if they can. Even if it's just a case of informing that the customer actually is the Netflix server, at least they're aware, and that provides customer satisfaction in itself. However, if the telco is able to fix the issue, then this could lead to new revenue drivers. And Omdia estimates that this industry will be worth $8 billion by 2024, which is 65% growth over the next five years. And with that, I would like to pause and I think and pass back to William for the poll.
So now let's turn to our first poll session. You'll be able to see the questions on the right-hand side of the screen. In just a sec. Yep, so you'll be able to see the questions and options on the right-hand side of the screen. So the first poll question is, which factor do you think impacts the overall broadband experience the most? So please check the box that you think best answers the question. We'll give you a couple of minutes here to have a think. The options for the first poll question are, as you can see on the screen. So the second poll question is, how much do you believe consumers will be willing to pay on top of their standard monthly broadband bill for an optimized broadband experience? Again, you can see your options on the right. Take a moment and let us know your thoughts by checking the box. So the options for the first one are A, nothing, B, $0 to $2 per month, C, $2 to $5 per month, D, $5 to $10 per month, E, more than $10 per month. So for the second one, we've also got the options are connection stability, reliability, and B, Wi-Fi coverage. So we'll just give you a quick moment for you guys to answer the correct options here. So now, interestingly, the results are all coming in now. So we can just see the results coming in. And we'll just take a moment here to look at the results. So as you can see for the first poll question, we can see that the highest for D and C were 38%, $2 to $5 per month, and for D, $5 to $10 per month. So actually the most popular choice was actually C, $2 to $5 per month. So over to you now, Michael Philpott. What are your thoughts on the first poll question being C, $2 to $5 per month? What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, I certainly believe that because having a good broadband quality experience is so important, that it is something that consumers are willing to pay for. And what we found is that it depends really on how the operator wants to position this as in terms of their tariff, standard broadband tariff. So is it something that they want to charge a little extra money for? So that's probably the right amount of money, $2 to $5 per month. Or do they want to position it to free, but only to premium customers? And that encourages an increasing number of consumers to move up those broadband tiers, and therefore increases ARPU that way as well. But whichever way you do it, it is proven that it does work, and this does really drive new revenue opportunities. So it's good to see that it's recognised by the panel as well.
Great, thanks. So yeah, now we can see, moving on, we can see the second poll. How much do you believe consumers are willing to pay on top of their standard monthly broadband bill for an optimized broadband experience? Um, so so now the results are coming in again for this question. So actually on the screen we can see connection stability / reliability is pretty high. It's at 38%. So focusing now on this question on the screen, we can see 38%. Over back to you, Michael. Again, if you could tell your thoughts, please, that'd be great.
Yeah, reliability is certainly becoming an important factor, especially as more people are working from home or doing things at a longer time. Really becomes an important area. And what we found in our research is that it's the connected home bits, the Wi-Fi bit, that is causing a lot of these issues. The thing is that it's interesting that A came out on top, because often it's a mix of things, really. It's reliability, sometimes it's coverage, sometimes it's interference. And what's important is that operators don't just chuck hardware at the problem, because in different households the issue will be different things. It could even just be a rogue device that's causing a problem. And that's where the AI data analytics come in, is that household by household, they can work out what the problem is and then fix the problem for that particular person. But the panel's quite correct, is that overall it comes down to reliability, and that's what consumers want.
Great. So the results are still coming in, but as we can see, Michael said, connection stability and reliability are still the highest at 33%, 34% now. Great. So thanks, Michael, again. Okay, so now it's time to move on to the first Q&A session of the day. So let me choose a couple of questions from your viewers for you, Michael. So the first question is, improving the broadband quality of experience may well require more investment. How can we monetize the broadband experience to balance this extra investment? So over again to you, Michael, if you could answer that question.
Yeah, so I say operators are taking different strategies around the world, and it usually depends on historically how they've charged for their broadband gateways. In some countries, it's quite normal to charge an extra rental fee, and that those are tending to continue along that strategy. Others, it's often been more standard to provide the broadband routers for free. But I say the way that they're getting around that is to offer the more premium technology on their premium broadband tiers, and that has been proven to increase the number of percentage of customers then taking that tier. So it does increase broadband that way. But I think what this does highlight is that how important it is that the marketing teams are heavily involved in this strategy. Not just, I know that today we're talking about the kind of improvement for the O&M team and the advantages for that, and there are definite advantages for the operational maintenance team. But it's vital that the marketing team are also involved in this, so that they can take advantage of this and grow their revenues too.
Great, thanks for that. So the second question I've chosen is again for you, Michael. I'll read it out now. So the home networks have already become the experience bottleneck of broadband services. How do you suggest carriers improve it? Which O&M methods or technology, such as big data and AI, would you recommend?
Yeah, so it's largely a combination of both adaptive Wi-Fi technology, or increasingly it's become known as smart Wi-Fi technology. So this is hardware technology and software technology in the home that can adapt to the environment and make sure that it's always providing a good quality signal around the home. Also with other advances such as mesh and Wi-Fi 6 and those types of features too, in combination with a cloud-based AI data analytics platform that's doing all the kind of the grunt work in the cloud, which then kind of can sense and control what's going on in the home as well, to make sure that you're always getting the most efficient service that you possibly can. And because it's in the cloud, it can do that not just for the single home, but of course across the whole of the footprint. So if you're an operator operating in an environment with very densely packed MDUs, for example, it can control the whole environment, not just on a single platform, apartment basis. So there's a combination of these technologies. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Michael, for your answers just now, and of course the presentation, and of course your insights onto the poll. So now we're going to move on. It's time for me to call on Mr. Liu Yen, who is about to outline and explore Huawei's zero-touch home broadband O&M solution for us. So, Liu Yan, it's a warm welcome over to you. So yeah, sorry guys, back online now. So now it's time for me to call on to Liu Yan, who's about to outline and explore Huawei's zero-touch home broadband O&M solution for us. So Mr. Liu Yan, it's a warm welcome and over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm sorry, just it's too later, and there were some things on the connections. Yeah, but we have resolved it. Sorry, guys. Okay, today let's talk about how to deal with the coronavirus. I think that we know that in coronavirus, our customers are locking down in the home, and they can do nothing without the home broadband. So we will receive a lot of requirements from our customers. Some will say, hey, I want some new service. And someone will say, hey, I want some high broadband. And some say, I want some much more stable Wi-Fi coverage or much stable Wi-Fi experience. But it's very hard to transfer these customers' requirements to the revenue, because our engineer is also locked down. So no one to handle this requirement. Some of operators can just mail the ONT to the customer, and the OSS will activate the ONT directly and get the revenue. But most of us, we don't have so complex and expensive OSS. So we cannot get any revenue from the customer requirement. We need to have some new technology to bridge the gap between the customer requirements and our abilities. So that is today I want to introduce the full zero-touch solution. How does this work? I think that we have 4 steps. The first step is zero-touch deployment, and the second is zero-touch provision, and the third is zero-touch troubleshooting. The fourth is zero-touch optimization. Let's take a look at the zero-touch deployment first. Please, next step. Okay, what is the pain point of FTTH construction? I think most operators will say the central office. Most of operators, we do not have enough central office, so we will try our best to reuse our wireless station or cabinets to deploy the smaller OLT, like the blade OLT. It's a very, very good solution because it can reuse the size, the battery, and the backhaul, and the power, and everything. But it's not easy to deploy the blade OLT in the wireless station. For example, our hardware engineer need a land to climb up and to deploy the blade OLT on a pole. And our commission engineer also need to climb the land too, and to commission and debugging the OLT. And one person is on duty remotely to configure the parameters. So the cost is very high, and it's become a big issue in epidemic period because we do not have so much engineers to doing this. So that's what the zero-touch deployment want to resolve. First, it's a plug and play. It means that the OLT will be automatically configured by NCE. And when the power is on, it means that the OLT will send a message to the DHP server, and the DHP server will give the IP to the blade OLT, and the OLT will use the IP to send a message to NCE, and NCE will do the configuration automatically. It's based on the NetConf protocol and the core home connection. So it can be used, but different operators have different configuration, how to handle it. So we need some process orchestrator to resolve these problems. We can use the orchestrator orchestrator to define the workflow and the different parameters. And the workflow will just import to the NCE and can be applied to the entire network. So here, I think it will show you a video and give you more understanding about this. Please, the video. Yes.
Seconds. So just please bear with us. Here we go.
So we will use. Before we doing this, we first have to orchestrate the process. This is a zero-touch deployment, and we can use it to simplify the deployment. No need that the commission engineers and the one person on duty for configure the parameters. Only need the field engineers, the hardware engineers to deploy the hardware. So next. Okay, next is about the zero-touch provision. I think after construction, we need to develop new subscribers, but we will face two challenges. The first challenge is about that the long OSS integration time. So we know that if we want to deploy new service and develop new subscribers, we will use the OSS to just to provision the service. But if before the OSS can be work, we have to integration with the hardware. So in traditional ways, the integration API, the northbound interface, is more than 20. So it means that it will spend more than 6 months, sometimes 1 year, to make it online. So this is the first challenge. And the second challenge is that if we don't have OSS, it means that we have to let the field engineer to configure the OLT and the ONT. That's mission impossible. So we have another solution. We just let a commission engineer to go with the field engineer to configure the OLT and the ONT. That is money impossible because we cannot let 2 engineers to deploy and to develop just 1 subscriber. So we need the zero-touch provision solutions. First, we can see that the service level API, what does it mean? It means that it will simplify the northbound interface. So we no need to let the OSS to know the detail about the hardware. We can just share the detail. We can just combine the more than 20 northbound interface to 4 or 3. It's defined by the customer service. So for example, in one project, we just combine this more than 20 API to 4, and the integration time is shortened from 9 months to 3 months. So this is very useful. It can just dramatically simplify the OSS integration. This is the function 1. And the function 2 is the ONT plug and play. It can be used when you don't have the OSS. It means that the ONT can be just automatically activated by the NCE when it's power on. So if you have the fiber deployed to the home, you can just mail an ONT to the customer, and the customer just connects the fiber to the ONT, and everything will be done by the NCE. And if the fiber is not ready, we just need a field engineer to deploy the fiber and plug the ONT, and everything done will be done by NCE. So it is very useful at the initial phase. So also here will be a video. Yeah, it will let me know more about the details. Okay, this is the zero-touch provision. I think we can use it to just simplify the OSS integration, and when you don't have the OSS, you can use it. It's very simple. And the next is about the zero-touch. I think next area, zero-touch troubleshooting. Yeah, I think when we are locked down in home, we must work at home and educate at home via the home broadband. So it will make us, will our operators receive a lot of complaints, such like that the bandwidth maybe is unstable, and maybe the Wi-Fi coverage is poor, and something like I need a higher bandwidth, and can you give me just a good package? Is much better than this. So we can receive a lot of this, but first we need to have to resolve this, like the Wi-Fi coverage is poor the problem. In fact, in the traditional way, we don't have such good tools to do this. So here I want to introduce some new solutions. First is about that the end-to-end segment-based speed test. It will use to find the bottleneck of the home network and the backhaul network. You can see that when the customer complains, and the operator can just initial speed test, and it will test segment by segment, and it will just not just give a result of the speed test. It will give each segment the test result, so you can see directly about the bottleneck and resolve this. This is the first functions, and another functions is about that location and fixing the top 7 faults. What does it mean? It means that if you have some just common issues and you complain to the customer, to the operator, and the operator can just use these functions to demarcate, to locate what problem is it. And not only this, it will give the suggestion to you. And here you can just fix it remotely. This is the second function. And the third function is about the history playback. I think it will be very, very useful when you're handling the repeating problems. Sometimes, for example, when you receive a complaint, yes, customers say that my bandwidth is not stable. Sometimes it's more than 100 megabits. Sometimes it's less than 5 megabits. And after the customer complains, you check the network, you find everything is good. Because the issue is not repeating. So you cannot know what problem is it. You cannot resolve it. But if we have the history playback, we can just go directly to the time the issue happens to check the network's connection, to check the configuration, to check the parameters. And you will be just to find the root cause of this very quickly. So these 3 functions can be used by the operators. And another functions, I think it will be also very useful. It will be used by the customer, by the subscribers themselves. They can use this to troubleshooting. For example, when the broadband is disconnected, there will be a pop-up window show on the subscriber's mobile phone. And the subscriber can follow the suggestion on the pop-up window and to resolve the problem. And here also we will have 3 videos because we want to explain more details about this. Okay, the video. Okay, this is the first video. We have 2 videos later. Okay, this video's the functions I think is very good. In fact, I just use these functions always because sometimes my Wi-Fi's coverage is not good. I will use this to identify what problem it is. Okay, then last video. Okay, I think the pop-up window, I think it will be very, very useful because the customers no need to install the application. We all know that sometimes I think everything they can use the Apple, but most of our customers won't install the Apple. So the pop-up window, just avoid this. It can just pop up directly and you can give the suggestion to you. Okay, this is about the zero-touch troubleshooting. Yes, the next is about the last, and but not least is the zero-touch optimization. In fact, for us, I think that we want to optimize the network to provide better experience to our customers. But if the issue is in the home, it's very hard to optimize because we don't know what's problem and what's the issue in the home network. And it's very hard to just resolve it because you have to on-site visit. So NCE will connect millions of data, such like the performance data and the alarms, and to match the fault model library. You can see that the fault model library is just is through the AI learning technology, and we store a lot of pattern in this. And we can use the data we connect from the network and match the library and to identify what cause and what's the root cause of this home's the issue. And it can identify such root cause like that the Wi-Fi signals have strong interference and the poor coverage and the lane is conflict, such things like this. And if we found and identify the root cause and the fault, it can be fixed and optimized directly and automatically. So there are two steps to do this. The first, it will be a background traffic learning. So we need to avoid the business time. We just to find the idle time. And in the idle time, the policy will be executed automatically. And it can be smoothly resolve the problem without the customer to notice. He can just feel, okay, yeah, the network is very good and the experience is improved, but he don't know what happened behind background. Okay, first for this page, we don't have a video because video is expensive. It's out of my budget. And in last page, we have 3 videos. That's too much. Okay, but if you want to know much more details about this, not only this page, about this whole presentation, you can just tell our colleagues and we can arrange a meeting with you and show the demo with you. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Liu Yan, for your presentation. Thank you very much. So now it's time for our second poll session of the day. As before, the question is on the right-hand side of the screen, as you'll be able to see in a moment. So please check the box for your answer. So the first poll question is, as you can see on the screen, what are the biggest challenges in home broadband O&M? The second poll question for you is, what interests you the most about Huawei's access network zero-touch O&M solution? So as you can see, the questions are on the screen and the relevant options are here for you to select. So if you, just like last time, we'll give you a couple of minutes now to choose your relevant answer. Okay, so next. So we're just waiting now for the results to come in. And the results have started to come in. So I'll just read out the options now. So for poll 1, what are the biggest challenges in home broadband O&M? So A, site-by-site software commissioning results in low OLT deployment efficiency. B, complex FTTH service provisioning process and long OSS integration periods. C, passive networks are invisible and troubleshooting depends on the site visit. And finally, D, home networks cannot be managed, requiring home visit to solve problems. So again, poll 2, the question is, what are you most interested in for the access network zero-touch O&M solution? As you can see, the options are as below. So now the results are coming in. So for the first one, for the first question, what are the biggest challenges in home broadband O&M? Actually, the results are coming in, but it's still quite clear that D, home networks cannot be managed, requiring home visit to solve problems, is at 44%. So over to you now, Mr. Liu Yan. What are your thoughts on this? Is this as you expected?
In fact, I also always think that the home network is the biggest challenge because the home network is too complex. That means that sometimes I have just to identify some root cause. I found that there are not of cause. We cannot just simplify to simply to get the root cause from the home network, because maybe there's more than 20 devices connected to the home network, and maybe there will be have that 4 or 6 Wi-Fi AP just connect, and the different type of service, different type of device, they combine together. So it's very hard. So, but you can see that for NCE, we try our best to try to resolve these problems. So now I'm just also a user of NCE product. I think that it will be useful to resolve these problems, and I think we will spend a lot of money to develop much better home broadband and home network troubleshooting and home Wi-Fi troubleshooting software to make it I think it can help our operators to enter the home network market. Okay.
Okay, so the second for the access network zero touch O&M solution. Well, the results are still coming in, but I think it's quite clear that B, zero touch provisioning, service level API, ONT, plug and play, free home visit is the top winner now with 36%. So over again to you, Mr. Liu Yan, what do you think about this? Is this, again, your thoughts on that would be great. Thanks very much.
No, it's out my expectation. In fact, I think that zero-touch troubleshooting maybe will be the better, but for the zero-touch provision, it's also it's very important, because if we cannot provision, it means that we cannot get revenue. So it is the most important. I think I will give a word to the team to develop these functions and to push them to provide better functions to make it zero touch, and it can just flexible and to do more things about to help the operators. Okay.
Now we're going to move on to the second Q&A session of today. And again, I'll be choosing 2 questions myself for Liu Yan. So the first question for Mr. Liu Yan is, ONT ZTP looks cool, but I understand the entire service provisioning process is complex. How does Huawei's ZTP solution flexibly meet the requirements of different carriers? So again, that's to you, Mr. Liu Yan.
In fact, I think that the service provision is complex because it will just related to the different OSs. For example, the inventory, the workflow, and the activation, and some troubleshooting. Maybe it also will be involved. So it's very, very complex. I think I think for the OSs, just to do their work, and we cannot just avoid to integration with the OSs. So this is the first thing. I think that the OSs is why the service provision is so complex, because we need these OSs to help us to maintain the network. So this is the first thing. And the second thing about this is that for NCE, we try to just simplify the integration with the OSs. We not just replace the OSs. So this is, I think, that we can help to just reduce the complex sometimes a little. Okay, this is the second point. And the third point is about that when you don't have the OSs, you can use the NCE provide the plug and play solution functions, but it can just be used on the initial phase, because in NCEs, in the solutions, it can be plug and play. It seems very good, but if your network is become very big and your subscribers is more than 10,000 or maybe 100,000, you need the OSs to manage the inventory. It will be useful to maintain the network and provide better experience service to our customers. So I think that we try to reduce a little complexity of the service provision, especially at the initial phase, but we cannot do everything to replace the OSs. So I think for the home broadband service, I think for this scenario, for this business, we should to follow that's the standard OSS Pro workflow and all these things. But we can just adjust a little, optimize a little. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So moving on now, the second question I've chosen is, out of the audience, is what are the differences between the Huawei segment-based speed test function and speed test tools in the industry? So again, that goes to Mr. Liu Yan. If you could reply to that, that'd be great.
I think we have two parts about this. The first is about that the industry speed test. It can be just be initiated by the customer. You have to install an app on your mobile phone and just test it. But for the end-to-end segment-based speed test, it can be initiated by the operator. So the operator can use this to identify and to demarcate the problem. So this is the first part. And the second part is based on the segment. It means that the end-to-end segment test, speed test, can just find the bottleneck. It can find better which segment, this segment or this segment or this segment, which segment is the bottleneck. I think it's very useful because I think for the operators, we know that the speed test results is not enough because we want to resolve this problem. So I think the second part, to find the bottleneck, it will be very useful to every operators.
Great, thanks again. Thank you to Liu Yan for your answers, your feedback today for your poll, and of course the presentation. That was great. Okay, it's time for us to wrap up now. Thank you all for your questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get around to answering yours live. However, rest assured, we'll be sure to contact you by email instead. So thank you very much for joining us today, wherever you are in the world. And of course, a big thank you to Michael Philpott and Liu Yan for taking the time to join us. Until next time, stay safe and goodbye. Thank you very much.